Almost ready.
So hello and welcome. You have joined the Happiness Telesummit, and my name is Erica Glessing. I'm joined today by a very fabulous certified access facilitator, Tamara Younker. Welcome, Tamara.
Hello. Thanks for having me, Erica.
I'm glad you could be here. And Fergus the cat has decided he would like to sort of just be marginally involved, and we've decided to let him run around and let his tail entertain us. So welcome, Fergus, to our Telesummit. So Tamara is a certified facilitator, coach, mediator, speaker, and pioneer of consciousness who has been researching the energetics of relating for more than 13 years. She has expertise in guiding clients to cultivate intimacy of being, where they function from a powerful and aware presence that allows them to live more creatively in the world and less kind of at the effect of it. And what Tamara and I talked about today before we got on the call with you is what consciousness can we be to be a contribution to you? And I love that question, Tamara. It really opens up that space of what could be known that we don't know. What awareness could we have that we don't have or that we're scared to see? And I think we've kind of been talking a little bit about healing and happiness. So if you want to start maybe just streaming us, because I know you're so good at this. And you can't get it wrong.
True.
You can't get it wrong. It's such a good feeling. Because you're safe. So just kind of share with us awareness and what do we not want to see and what could we see? And you want to start there?
Yeah, it's funny. I just returned from Santa Fe a couple days ago, where I taught one of my specialty classes on intimacy, and I did an intro night on the topic was trusting you, and to me that's kind of like the cornerstone and foundation of so much of that creative capacity that we can tap into that often we don't tap into as much as we can. And awareness is a big part of trusting us. Like to truly trust me and trust what I know is to trust the awareness that I have, and that comes in a lot of different ways. There's just what I know, right? There's what I know that 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 I know it, and it doesn't matter what anybody else says or tries to convince me of. It's like I don't have to prove anything to anyone. It's just what I know. And then there's also sort of the energy that I'm tapping into in any given moment. I arrive at a party or I go to a function of any kind, and there's all these people in there. Even if I just go to the grocery store, wherever I go, there's always energy everywhere around me all the time. And I can be aware of that energy in a way that doesn't allow me to be at the effect of it. So many people, hide away or feel like they have to have all these barriers up because they're like, ooh, I don't know what that is. That's freaky. That's scary. That's creepy. That's whatever. And so much of our awareness we're not comfortable with. We don't want to know what it is. We don't consider it just simply to be information. What if we're aware of could just simply be information? And if it's just information, it just gives us the capacity to kind of navigate in the world, I would say, with greater ease, in the same way that if I walk into a room I've never been to before, I see chairs, I see a table, I see maybe a stand with water on it. I just take this visual scan and I'm kind of recording everything that I see, or even auditorily. We don't often include that information that we receive through awareness, which is in that energetic landscape. So it's a little bit different that we don't often acknowledge, and yet is a huge part of reality. It's energy is sort of our first language. We come in with that awareness of the energy around us, but because nobody values it in this reality, it's sort of dismissed, and pay attention more to thinking and what's logical, what's reasonable, what's rational, what you can see, what you can prove, what's physical, and we dismiss this whole energetic realm that then we tend to sometimes live at the effect of, because we haven't really honored our own knowing and allowed that to be information that we can use to navigate with greater ease in our lives.
So I'm interested in this, one of the things that you talk about. Tamara has a body of work around intimacy, and there's something that you talk about that happens at some point in someone's, typically in their childhood, where we give up, or the only way I can explain it is what showed up for me when you were talking about it was I was a really sweet 2-year-old, and I loved opening the doors and greeting people. I loved being really friendly, and I loved just like helping people feel really good just by being that me of me. And I think soon I felt like there was a tamping down of that. Like it wasn't okay to be as energetic and brilliant and bouncy and excited about life as I was. And I think one of the things I recognized when you were teaching was something in that space of, I don't know, you called it something like losing talk.
I do remember our conversation, and to me, it's like when you show up on the planet as this little being, little being, a little body, big being, little body, and the natural way of being is very, I'll say, loving and generous, and we love to throw our arms around people and just give them big hugs, and we don't know anything about judgment yet. We don't know anything at all about like shame or blame or regret or guilt. None of that is in our world. We're just here to be and enjoy and express, and we love feeling the sun on our skin, and we love, chasing butterflies and jumping in mud puddles after the rain, and we could just delight in those types of activities all day long and sing and dance and just be. And unfortunately, what happens is this reality is like, well, that's all well and good and cute till you're about 2 or so, or 1.5 or whatever. But then you have to start, behaving. You have to start actually learning what it is to be appropriate in society, and learn that there's certain things you can't do, and there's certain things you should never do, and there's certain things that you will want to do in order to continue to receive like my approval as your caretaker or the adult in your life. And so we start paying much more attention to the behaviors, and here comes Fergus. We start paying much more attention to the behaviors rather than the being. And so all of the people around us, our caretakers, are telling us, oh, you're going to get rewarded, and a pat on the head, and approval and attention, and receive more love if you do the behaviors that I want you to do, if you do all the things that I want you to do when I want you to do them. But if you do those things when it's not appropriate, or you do things that you should, like, pick your nose, right? Everyone's like, oh, no, don't do that. Don't do that in public. Don't ever do it at all. That's like a bad thing. I mean, it's just a silly example. But there are ways that we learn pretty quickly that there's behaviors that aren't acceptable, and those should be hidden, or do that in private, or never do that at all. Or so this tamping down that you're talking about is more behavior oriented, and this beautiful being, it doesn't go anywhere. It's always there. It just isn't. It's like we don't allow it to express. We're like, okay, well, I can't be that in this situation. I can't do that anymore. This isn't acceptable. That's not allowed. And so we sort of systematically begin to give up in little pieces over time all of that joyful, just natural, just being.
So, that really talks to me when I'm looking at Happiness Telesummit, and I'm looking at really kind of helping people. This year, it's really interesting to me that we're processing some kind of heavier energy, that I'm seeing that people who bring light, and most people listening are light workers. So most of the people who come are in the world of bringing light to others. A lot of the listeners are really interested in feeling that sense of joy, and then also healing others. And when I just heard you talk about that, I felt like, so what could we free up, or what could we bring into our lives to shift that energy again? Because if we look at, okay, who am I really? Like, I'm pretty silly. Right? I laugh just for no reason.
Yeah.
And then, like, what you're saying is, like, that's not really something that our society says you should do. And if I'm silly, and, someone was telling me yesterday, she was like, I was in a horrible marriage, and I was like, yeah, me too. And she's like, blah, 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 and I'm like, me too. And then she was so funny because because she threw this like cultural thing at me. She's like, but I'm this culture, so that means it's way worse for me. And I said, oh, really? That's interesting. Okay. And it wasn't that I didn't go there with her, but I just listened to her story.
Mm-hmm.
I listened to how embedded she was in her story.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just interested in how she was. And I'm just going to be a little, because I'm talking to myself too, when you're regurgitating things over and over and over again, I've noticed it makes it harder for people to really feel joy again if these stories are just like this, their major presence. And so what can we do, Tamara? What shows up for you when I say, I'm ready, I'm going to break that, or I'm going to help the woman I was talking to in that space of, is she ready to tell things differently, or to let go of some of that solid mass of junk that keeps us from ourselves?
Yeah. Well, one of the things
question.
that is, and I was like, wow, I could say so much about that. One of the things that I say is that joy is the natural byproduct of just being you, right? And so joy is the natural space of being when you're not choosing against you, when you're not obstructing that natural just way of being, like I was kind of describing as a little kid, right? I feel now more today in my 40s, I have finally discovered what it is to be childlike, which to me is different than childish. Like childlike in that space of wonderment and that generosity and that just, like I was saying, little kids, they don't know anything of blame or shame or regret or guilt. In other words, judgment hasn't been introduced into their life yet. And that's kind of what I was talking about when behavior becomes the more important thing. People start judging behavior. And it's like that space of being is unjudgeable. It's pure joy, it's pure bliss, it's pure expression, it's pure creation. And it's really unjudgeable. But then people come in and they say, well, I don't like how you're behaving, so now I'm going to try and change you into behaving in a different way. And judgment has several elements to it. It has conclusion, it has decision, it has projection, it has expectation, it has these different elements. And what you're talking about, when we get caught up in our stories, there's usually some hook in that story where there's some wrongness of us. There's something, we have become a judgeable offense. And that story sort of hooks us into that definition of us as wrong in some way, based on our behavior, based on what we did or we didn't do, or we didn't do well enough, or we decided we couldn't do, or it's a lot of that. If you were able to not, or like, what if judgment's not real? What if it's not relevant? What if we can allow it to become obsolete? I mean, it wasn't real or relevant to us as babies and toddlers until somebody introduced into our world that there were behaviors that were unacceptable, and there were things that we couldn't do. And so if we can actually begin to find our way back to that space of non-judgment, or recreating for ourselves a post-judgment reality, like when I say I know what it is to be a child or childlike for the first time in my life, I don't remember that as a kid. Like, I don't remember the joy and bliss of being as a child. Lots of people do, and lots of people don't, and I don't. So I kind of had to like find my way there as an adult. And one of the ways that I found my way there was giving up judgment as real or relevant in my life, giving up everywhere that I was deciding based on what I could or couldn't do, or couldn't do well enough, or like this, therefore that makes me less, I'm diminished, I'm not good enough, I'm we get onto that judgment spectrum then, where I'm selfish or I'm unselfish, or I'm kind or I'm unkind, or whatever, based on what I do, as opposed to just that natural generative creative energy that I be.
And tell me the relationship when you talk about intimacy, and you're just coming back from a workshop, right, on that very topic. So tell us a little bit about, take us through, if you're willing to do this, take us through what's possible. Take us through what are some of the, because some people have just never been there.
Yes.
And so you're saying, well, take me somewhere, but if they've never been there, they're like, well,
Right.
picture what it's like to be in Maine on the waterfront. And I've never been
Right.
to Maine. I don't know what that's like. Or picture the big island of Hawaii. Well, I
Yeah.
haven't been on the big island of Hawaii. Now,
Yeah.
I personally have been on Kauai, so I could, but maybe just take us into that a little bit. Give us a glimpse into some of the things that are possible in
Hmm.
this world where you've kind of shed some of your stuff.
Yeah, thanks for that invitation. It's actually really fun for me to paint that picture of possibility for people. Because honestly, I didn't know. It's like, how can you choose what you don't know is available as a possibility? If you've never had chocolate ice cream, if you've never had an experience, and you don't even know it's available as a possibility, how would you even know to choose it? And I think that is one of the things that inspires me to talk about intimacy and to do intimacy classes. When I would say about 5 years ago, I got to this place in my life where I kind of hit this rock bottom in the sense that nothing. I had this point of view that nothing in my life was working, and I had this sort of aha moment. I was like, wow, I'm really living as if I'm a victim to such an extreme degree, as in like I felt powerless. I felt like there were so many things in my life that I didn't have a choice in, or I was like I was at the effect of things. um I made so many things greater than me. I mean, it was pretty much every situation, every circumstance, every thought, feeling, and emotion, other people. It was just like I don't know what to do. I felt sort of like a leaf in the wind, just being buffeted wherever the world
Mm,
took me. And that was not a fun way to live. I didn't feel
yeah.
like I was in command of my world and what I really wanted to create. I was just living at the effect of everything over and over and over and over. And this for like my whole life I felt this way. And I was like, I can't live this way anymore. I got to this point where I call it rock bottom. I was like, I absolutely cannot live this way for 1 minute more. Something's got to give. Something's got to change.
Wow.
I don't even know what it is. Like, I just know I can't live like this anymore. So I was in this giant question mark of what? Like, there's got to be something different. There's got to be some other possibility. And I don't know that I use those words necessarily. I just felt massive frustration. and um, and that's when Access Consciousness came along, and that's when I started to learn about the tools that Access Consciousness offers. And one of the things that is part of Access is something called the 5 elements of intimacy. And those 5 elements are honor, trust, allowance, vulnerability, and gratitude. And after taking a few classes in Access, I was it was brought to my attention pretty much by the founder of Access, Gary Douglas, that I really didn't have any intimacy with myself at all. I had become an expert in lying to myself. And what I mean by that is sort of buying into the unconsciousness that this entire reality functions from. I bought into all the rules. I bought into all the can'ts and the must-dos and the shoulds and the have-tos and the supposed-tos and the appropriates that I've been talking about. Everywhere I bought that behavior was much more important than the energy and space of being. Just expressing in any way I chose in any given 10 seconds. Again, more like a child. Um, and that's not to say that, just you become a rampant sociopath. That's not what I'm talking about. You know what I mean?
Right.
But I realized, I was like, okay, if things are really going to change in my life, I started to recognize that I had to have a greater sense of intimacy with me, so that I didn't feel like I was completely at the effect of everything else, because I had given up trusting me
Wow.
almost entirely
Wow.
in favor of trusting all the rules of this reality. Now, what's
Yeah.
completely shifted for me through cultivating these 5 elements of intimacy over the last 5 years is that I trust me almost implicitly. And the doubt and the second guessing is almost entirely gone. I'm not going to say it completely, because I'm still pioneering new areas of my life, right? Like,
Mhm.
every time I come to something that's unknown and I want to lean into that because I'm like, well, I want more of that, but I don't know what more looks like. It
Right.
requires me to be vulnerable again in the space of the unknown. But I trust myself enough to not be risk averse. In other words, I don't run in the other direction when something unknown shows up. I said, okay, well, I've got my trust in me. I know that I have choice at my disposal in every moment.
Yeah.
I know that nothing is greater than me anymore. Like I don't make anything else more important. And it really is a space of ease. It's a space of ease and peace and just sort of natural joy, not like, I mean, if we're conditionally dependent on how things happen in our lives, how things go, you know, you get the job you wanted and you're happy, and then your marriage falls apart and you're sad, and you know, like we are very conditionally dependent on our external world, and so we kind of have these highs, and we have these highs and lows and highs and lows, and I know for myself, I was very depressed and attempted suicide as a younger person, and now that I have shifted, not being dependent on my external circumstances, not that I don't want to create things that are fun for me and joyful for me in an external way, but I have a greater command over my internal landscape, my emotional landscape, my energetic landscape. I have more command over that, so I don't feel like I'm completely at the effect of the world around me. And there's just this natural space of ease and peace and joy that's just always it's always there.
That's wonderful.
And I don't feel like, you know, I can be harmed from people or things in the world. So it's much easier for me to lean in and be really, I mean, when I say I'm a pioneer of consciousness, like I'm always exploring the boundaries, the limits. Like, haven't experienced that yet? Okay, let's lean in. Let's go for it. Let's find out what's possible.
Right. I love that. I love that. And you know, one of the things that I observe is in this staying alive, it means you're doing things like, to do the Telesummit with video this year for me was just like really scary. Like I'd seen a lot of people do them with video, and I'd gotten that, and then I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to care about my looks. Like it was so interesting what went through my head when I was shifting. And then so my first reaction was, well, I'll try to do them on Google Hangout, but I won't commit to it. I'll let people do them still MP3, which if you're listening and you like MP3, that means you're just listening to the audio and not have the visual component. And it was really interesting because I kept being thrown, people will have more fun if you let them see you guys. They'll feel more connected to you. They'll get the information in a different way. They'll get the download, not just from your words. And I went, okay. And I have to tell you, in that space of not knowing, right, of is this good or bad, because honestly there really isn't a whole body of evidence in any direction. And I just kept feeling like it wanted to be that. And I let it. And then it felt really good. And I went, oh, like that's that place you're talking about where you're saying yes to something you don't understand. Just talk a little bit about that frontier of consciousness, that place where you're letting things, and really, you know, what's showing up for me, and I know you do talk about this sometimes, is control. Tell us a little bit about that consciousness and control.
Yeah, so control is not compatible with those 5 elements of intimacy, really. Like, so if you're part of why I was so good at lying to myself is because I was completely invested in controlling everything in an external way. Like if I could just get all my ducks in a row, and then everything was working just right, and then like freeze frame, nobody moved, nobody changed, nothing. You know, and I expended enormous amounts of energy trying to control my environment so that I wouldn't have to feel something I didn't want to feel. And mostly what I didn't want to feel was powerless and out of control.
Right.
It's like there's some sense of false sense of security when you can just control everything. Like I'll be okay if I can just control everything. And so many of us will control all kinds of we'll control relationships, we'll control our environments to such a degree in order to ensure that we never have to feel something we've decided we never want to feel again.
Yeah.
And if we make the external reality the thing that is at fault for our emotional well-being. Like, if I'm blaming someone out there, well, you hurt me, so now I have to make sure that that never happens again. Or, this circumstance or this situation occurred, and so, I'm blaming my job, or I'm blaming my boss, or I'm blaming the government, or if I'm blaming anything at all in an external way for my emotional well-being, then I'm going to have to try and control my whole world to ensure that I never get hurt again by that thing out there. And what I realized as I cultivated these 5 elements of intimacy, to my surprise, I didn't know this was going to happen until I actually did the research and lived my life this way. I realized that in order to really have trust in me, I have to give up blame entirely. Entirely. I take full responsibility for everything I create in my life, and nothing outside of me is to blame. And when I do that, I actually eliminate this idea that there's something out there that can harm me, and so I have to control my world to make sure that I don't get hurt again. And that's part of what allowed me to sort of like put down all the barriers and know that it's where that just space of ease and peace and joy that I reside in pretty much, all the time, because there's nothing, and I can lean into life. I can take risks. I can go after things that, I thought never in a million years I'd ever be able to do or choose, or, I'm like, let's go for it, because I know I'm in command and I can let go of all control. To me, being in command of your life and having to control everything are 2 vastly different things. So I have given up everywhere I used to feel control was so vital for my survival and my safety and my emotional well-being. And now I'm in command of my life, knowing that I'm just in charge, right? Like, I'm in charge of my experience. I'm in charge of how I feel at any given moment. And if something arises that's turbulent, that kind of throws me off, and I'm like, oh, wow, this was unexpected or whatever, right. I can choose my way through that with so much greater ease than now that I've cultivated this intimacy with myself. It's if I'm in a vessel on the water and the water gets turbulent, I don't worry like I used to. There used to be so much stress and so much worry, and control a lot of times is about fearing what's going to occur in the future. So I have to try and control everything so the bad things I don't want to happen. It's living a life of avoidance. Of what are you trying to avoid constantly? Fear is very much, extreme avoidance of what I don't want to happen, I don't want to feel. And now, rather than running from my life or trying to control it or avoid so many things, I'm leaning into it. I'm full steam ahead. Let's go. Like, what can we create? What's possible? Yeah. What more is possible now? I feel more alive than I ever have in my entire life. And I keep asking for more, and I keep saying, how does it get any better than this? And the thing is, the universe keeps showing me how it gets better.
I love it. I sat there this morning and I was like, what consciousness can I be so that today can be even better than yesterday? Like, what consciousness can I be today? What can I bring to today that will just help everybody in my world? What is it that I can just kind of in that space of me? And I was telling you, I made some changes to my schedule, and I freed up some things, and it was really interesting because the should part of me wanted to get certain things done by a certain date, or like the world would pretty much stop turning, I'm sure. Like,
absolutely.
It would stop completely turning on completely, right? And I don't know, it was interesting. I love this work because I love where you start giving yourself the freedom, So maybe share with our audience. Let me think if I'm getting a question right now. I'm very intuitive, right? And you are too, so feel free to just blab. But I'm seeing if I can tune into a question. What if, okay, I got this, and it was what if, and I'm just going to pretend like I don't have any knowledge about the answer, so I'm just going to be like a blank slate mind.
Great.
What if I wake up and there's all these people that are assholes in my world? So say I work at a school and the principal's a jerk, or say I'm in this environment. And so I'm in relationship with those people who have these characteristics. So what can I bring to the table when I'm seeing this, I'll just say creepy people in my space?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, yeah. And so I'm gonna start by kind of painting the picture of possibility. So I used to live completely at the effect of all those people. I wanted to avoid them, or I was always in battle with them in some way, or I was trying. I would create separation from them. I was like, oh, I don't want to have to deal with them, and I don't have to deal with their energy, and I don't have to deal. So I was living 100% at the effect of them, essentially, whether I was in battle with them or whether I was avoiding them. And those things there's not a whole lot of freedom in either one of those. Anytime you're fighting, there's no freedom in the fight. And anytime you're avoiding, people say, well, that's a choice to avoid. And I say, well, it might be a choice to avoid, but there's not really a lot of freedom in your choice because you feel like your only choice is to avoid. So the way I live now, that I have cultivated this intimacy with me, is that, and I'll just put a question out there, what if you could live so intimately with yourself and so intimately with the world around you, including all the people that you're going to come in contact with, even the ones that are less pleasant, let's say, so intimately with the world around you that if someone's delivering judgmental energy, unkindness, assholeness, whatever you want to call it, that it actually doesn't it doesn't occur to you as relevant to you. It's just information about how that person is functioning. So it literally makes no impact on me. It's just information. I'm like, oh, okay, I see how this person is functioning. So I don't have to go to battle with them. I don't have to avoid them. I can actually just continue to maintain a powerful presence, a space of being that allows me to engage with them in a way where there's no it doesn't rock my world. It doesn't create any turbulence whatsoever.
When you say that, my whole body relaxes.
Right?
I just go, oh, like it's just this wonderful sensation.
Yeah.
Like I can walk into the school office looking, with my dress to die for, just because my body wanted to look like that, and just be like, oh, not care about the judgment.
Yeah. Like what if it doesn't register as relevant to you ever again? To be able to go in the world, live in the world, and you don't make other people's points of view greater than what you know to be true for you. You don't make other people's choices relevant to you. You don't even make what they would have you choose. In other words, their expectations, like that's not relevant to you. It doesn't register as a problem to you. So there's no defense. It's like we're so much in defense. We're just like, oh God, get the world away from me. You know what I mean? Right. And when you talk about that tension in your body, so much of that tension in your body is because you're trying to keep this energetic buffer between you and everything you don't want to have to deal with.
Right.
Or that you feel like you don't know how to deal with, right? You're like, you feel powerless in some way. And most people don't walk around thinking that they're powerless. It's sort of a way of, and I certainly didn't. Like if somebody had said to me, well, you sure are acting like a victim, I would have been like, no, I'm not. I mean, look how autonomous I am. Look how independent I am. I'm not a victim. Are you kidding me? And yet I was functioning entirely as a victim and didn't even know it. So it's not a cognitive thing that we walk around feeling powerless or like a victim. Some people do. Some people, you might have a sense of that. I was pretty good at having pity parties and stuff like that. So now it's just a totally different thing. I don't have that sense of powerless or victim. And if it does show up, if it shows up, I'm like, oh, I know what that is, and I have the tools now to work with myself in that intimate space that I've created to be able to shift it fairly quickly. I mean, things that would have, set me off. For example, I was married, and my husband left our marriage shortly after we were married, within like 3 months, and that laid me flat in a place of complete effect for about a year. It took me a year to dig myself out of that place of self-pity that I put myself in and feeling victimized by what had occurred and so forth. And now it's those types of things, it might set me off for a few minutes or an hour or I don't know, maybe a half a day at the most or something, or a day, a weekend. Like, though, when I recognize that I've lost that sense of where am I in all of this, when I feel
Right.
lost, I have the tools to be able to, trust me again, find my way back to me and the trust in me and what I know to be true, and then there's ease back in my world again fairly quickly.
I love it. Thank you so much. I'm interested in what you put together for our listeners. I guess you put together something kind of delicious. I believe it includes a really terrific class. And just tell us a little bit about what you've cooked up your sleeve, Miss Tamara, for my beautiful happiness.
Thank you. And you know what? It's funny because this was completely inspired by a conversation that you and I had previous to today, and it's a 4-part telecall series that I'm calling From Prison to Playground. And it really is about would you like to have more ease in your world, in your reality, in the way that I've been talking about, that I've been sharing today, because
Nice.
I say that I used to be Eeyore, like I was this walking, talking Eeyore, where again at the effect of everything, there was like zero happiness in my world. There was a high that I would get from drugs or drinking, but there wasn't like a sustainable, enduring happiness in my world. And so I really was at that feeling like I was at the effect of everything was my own self-imposed prison.
Right.
And now my life is a playground, and this whole world is a playground.
I want to go. I still got a little crap. So everyone go and on the offer page right now, and she has put together this beautiful telecall series. And what else?
And there's going to include a special download of a 2-hour class that I did, which is an introduction to intimacy. It's called Trusting You. So I did a 2-hour class on what it is to trust you, and it's an intro. So it's really about like, how did we lose that trust in us, and what does it take to kind of cultivate it again? And because, like I said, I think my point of view is that to the degree that you trust you is the degree that you're going to have greater happiness, you're going to have greater ease, you're going to have greater creative potency. Like everything flourishes when you trust you, and everything becomes difficult and like a struggle when you don't. So 2-hour class, and then the 4-part telecall series that will be live in the future. So you'll actually have a chance to be live with me, ask questions, get personal facilitation from me.
Right.
And I prefer to offer things that way as opposed to like something that's old and
I love it.
I'd like to do things fresh, in the moment, be present.
I love it. Well, I highly recommend that you go and hang out with Tamara. She also has some very beautiful and inspirational SoundCloud audio. So right here on her offer page, we'll share with you how to work more closely with Tamara, and highly recommend it. She's definitely just in this moment that I kind of sought her out, and it's just like I feel like I've let go of a lot of judgment in that window of time I've known you. So I want to thank you for that, for all the work you're doing in the world. Thank you so much. And do you have like an outgoing message for my guests?
Well, first of all, I just want to share my gratitude for inviting me to be part of the Happiness Telesummit. It's kind of ironic in the sense that, who knew that Eeyore would ever in the future be a part of a Happiness Telesummit, right? Like, if you had told me 10 years ago that was going to be, I would be like, yeah, right,
Wow, right?
So,
very cool.
So,
awesome.
yeah. I want to thank you for that, and what if you trusted, you being the audience, what if you trusted possibility? You have placed that trust in you, place that trust in possibility, rather than the evidence from the past. I see so many people who are like, yes, I've tried, I've done that. They've gathered evidence their whole lives for what's never going to work or how they're wrong. What if they gave up all of that evidence from their past? What if you trusted you and you trusted possibility?
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Tamara.
Thank you. It's been a delight.